And here he is, as promised. We do have a guest tonight. Let me do this the proper way. Our guest tonight is brought to you by our Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone. And man, this thing is growing like crazy. This is where people who are looking for a safe place to play Dynasty with people who are either into Dynasty as much as they are or looking to make new friends in the Dynasty world. You're guaranteed to be in a league if you join a Patreon league with some combination of me or Jerry, our graphics guru Maddie, or our chief medical consultant Dr. Kyle, and a soon-to-be mystery redraft co-host. It's also the home of the infamous group chat that is never dry. Jerry, this thing goes on 24/7, it seems like.
It seems like it certainly is. We've got
It's
people
the
all across.
Australians.
It is the Australians. You got
100% the Australians.
They're cyborgs.
They are, and they don't sleep. They get up like at 3 in the morning to watch football in Australia. You know, some of the members chime in every day. Some drop by occasionally, but there's always room for you, and we love to have you. Starting in 2021, as startup season gets here, build season, orphan season. Check us out. Head over to patreon.com/Dynasty WarZone and join today. And let's bring in our guest, one of my absolute favorites, and not just as a Dynasty analyst, but as a friend, one of the few members of the Dynasty and fantasy community that I've met in person. His name is Nick Whalen, and he is the creator of The Graduates and the Devi Report. These are must follows. As you guys know, I am college game impaired, and I rely so heavily on things like The Graduates and the Devi Report to get me up to speed this time of the year. He is a former football coach turned life coach. He occasionally hangs out with some Dynasty nerds, and he's an obstacle course racer and can be found on both Instagram and Twitter at _Nick Whalen. Nick, my friend, welcome back, buddy.
Dude, that's way too much. I mean, I'm just a guy, man. But I want to say this plug. I've been blessed to do a lot of podcasts over the years. My favorite podcast is the fitness one that me and you did. Because
we're going to do that again, man. We're going to do that again in the off season.
Well, you got to have me on because it was so much fun to do something I'm passionate about outside of this football world. Because we just talk about this stuff all the time, which we love it. So that's cool. But there was another passion. I was like, oh, someone's finally asking me about lifting and running and health and helping somebody in that way. I feel like would transform their life way more than, hey, pick this receiver over this receiver in a draft.
Absolutely. And I'll try to have you on. So we have been sponsored by a brand called Hate Brand Goods. And the owner of the company, his name's Matt Vincent, and he very much shares the passion of helping people through fitness as well. So we're going to, continue to do that. We're adding shows all the time. I was literally writing out our calendar of shows through the first quarter of 2021. And we're still going to be dropping 2-3 shows a week. So we're going to have guests like you. We'll have you back on. Jerry will not be on the fitness podcast.
I was actually just thinking what we should do is have you guys talk about all the things that you think is a good idea and then just have me do them. And then just watching some lame person that can't pull it off trying to do it. I think that is going to be true entertainment.
Or a before and after, Jerry. You could be transformed, man.
I feel like some
Only
combination.
if I can oil myself up after.
I feel like it's going to be some combination of The Biggest Loser meets Jackass is what I'm feeling in a fitness journey with Jerry. But the reason why Nick's here, so we were very fortunate, and this is one of those things where when you make friends with people and you have similar interests, it's very good to be able to leverage those relationships and share those relationships with our podcast and YouTube subscribers. So last week we had Ray Garvin on. He broke down running backs with us. And it was in what will seem like to the hardcore Devi and college fan, it might seem very, very elementary. But for someone like me who is just starting to wade into the waters of what will be 2021 rookie season, it's great to get that brief introduction of these rookies. So what we're going to do it just like last week. Nick, I'm going to hit you with one wide receiver at a time. We're going to do 5. We call this a 5x5, very similar to a strength session in the gym. We're going to go 5x5, 5 wide receivers, 5 questions per for a 5x5. So we're going to start with a guy who's getting a lot of buzz right now. He's an Alabama wide receiver. I saw a lot of people over the last 2 weekends on Twitter calling him the wide receiver one in this class. So Nick, we're going to start with Devonta Smith, wide receiver, Alabama. Who is he?
Yeah, so what's interesting is Devonta Smith was the highest recruited receiver out of that group. You going to go back to last year, you had Ruggs and Judy and Waddle, who we'll talk about probably as well. He was the highest recruited one, and the one that just kind of like faded away because these other guys had flashed so much. But Devonta Smith is the one that won the national championship game when Tua looked off the safety and came back, and people forget about that. That was freshman year. He flashed there, and then he's continually flashed, and then he outplayed Jerry Jeudy in 2019. And it's like, well, hold on, wait a minute. Who's Devonta Smith? And he still didn't get the respect. And what's interesting is the guys that you're going to ask me about on this show were my top 5 when I look over here at my Devy report. So it's like pretty cool. It's like, okay, these are the guys I have up there anyway. And I feel like he's been underrated all along because on film, his route running is sexy, and I'll say that when it's there, because it's just like, oh, this is just everything that he does is just amazing with his footwork, with how he attacks, because a lot of it's mental. You have to have a plan with how you're going to go about it. He's on balance. He's just a phenomenal prospect. So we'll probably get into more of that, but he's 6'1", 175, 4-star guy, and he's been super productive. He actually set the Alabama wide receiver touchdown reception record for a career, which is cool too.
All right, so the first question we ask is, what does he do well? You mentioned a couple of things, but if you had to, if you were writing this guy's resume, what would you put down as things he does well?
Route running is number one. He's always open. I mean, being on this show reminds me of the Terry McLaurin, call out. Think of McLaurin. I mean, a guy that's a little bit skinnier, but his route running, nobody can guard him. That's one. And this is a compliment from Jerry Jeudy, which I see on film as well. Jeudy was asked about all 4 receivers. He's like, okay, how do you separate you guys? Ruggs is the fastest. Waddle's the quickest and most agile. I'm the best route runner. And Devonta Smith catches everything in his hands. You wouldn't think so for a skinny guy in traffic, but he locks on and he just catches contested balls and never drops it, which is what you want to see for a guy that's a little bit slight.
So he's got good hands. He's got unbelievable production. He does it against great talent. What does he have against him? Give me is there something that stands out for you, or is it just nitpicking at this point?
It would kind of be nitpicking. I mean, I'm sure people are going to look at him and be like, wow, he's not a great athlete, but he's just kind of like one of those sneaky athletes where like he's going to be in the 4.4s and he's quick and he is purposeful with his movements, but he's not going to drop a 4.3, His slight build is going to get the most of the scrutiny. But when you play strong, when you aren't afraid to run over the middle, when you can catch contested passes, I kind of don't care about that. And we've seen Antonio Brown dominate. We've seen McLaurin dominate. I mean, McLaurin's a little thicker, but we've seen that happen before. Marvin Harrison, they just dominate. So I'm not that worried about it, but it's going to be one of those things. I want to see what happens when there's a really physical guy that is a corner. I mean, college corners aren't as good. Gets into his frame. I want to see what he does, but he uses his hands well, even when they do that. He has the highest floor by far in this class.
That is awesome. So one of the questions that we're asking, because so many times I think we've all been burned. I think that's a fair way to put it. We've been burned by drafting a guy in our rookie draft because we loved him coming out of college. We loved his talent, but maybe we didn't love his landing spot. So what would be the best possible landing spot in the NFL? I know a lot of teams need wide receivers, like one that come to mind for me, and maybe I'm reading your mind. I thought the New York Jets, because they've got Denzel Mims, who seems to play a different game, a bigger receiver, more of a speedster, at least from what I can tell so far. So maybe that's a good fit. And then the next question, they kind of go together. It's a little sad, but whose job is he going to take? Because here's the thing, as these rookies come in, we want to help our dynasty owners. We want to help them prepare for who they're going to draft. But if we think someone's in danger of losing their job, unfortunately, it's going to cause a hit to their dynasty value. So where would be a good fit, and who does he put at risk of losing their gig?
I like your call out with the Jets. That makes sense. My concern there would be they need to trade up to get him because he's going to go in the first round, in my opinion. I'm going to say one scheme fit that I like for him, a team that I like for him that makes so much sense. They should have done this last year. Is Green Bay. He goes to Green Bay. He's such a trustworthy guy that can step in right away with Rodgers. They do timing routes. He can play in that scheme where there's play action. He can do everything that they want. He's probably not the most amazing run blocker, but in terms of guys' jobs that he takes that you want to get rid of, Alan Lazard is the guy. Get rid of him. Bye-bye. Sorry. You're just not going to be good enough. Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring him up because we can tie this in before we go to Jalen Waddle, because if we're going to be in Alabama, we might as well stay there for a minute. But
Roll Tide.
Yeah, Roll Tide indeed. But we were talking about Robert Tonyan, and the debate came up about, is he a worthy dynasty asset? And I think that he is, because older quarterbacks, think of Tom Brady in New England. Think about Tom Brady demanding that they bring in Antonio Brown. Once you get one of these established veteran quarterbacks' trust, it's not something that's going to go away overnight. And remember that from a patient standpoint, when a rookie or a free agent wide receiver winds up in Green Bay, Aaron's going to make them earn his trust. And you may not get the production you want right away, so just be cool depending on where they land. If Nick nails this one and he lands in Green Bay, don't be surprised if weeks 1 through 4, 1 through 5, as he's building rapport and chemistry with AR-12, that it doesn't take a minute. But yeah, we were talking about Robert Tonyan. But let's get into Jalen Waddle, man. Who is he?
Man, Jalen Waddle, this is just one of those where I feel so happy for this kid because he's a guy I loved out of high school. I actually had him my second rated wide receiver, even though he's smaller, 5'10", 182. He was a 5-star guy for Rivals, 4-star guy for 24/7, but he was highly regarded. Here's an interesting fact, which I know this is why you have me on the show, okay? He is only, let me see here, 2 weeks younger than Devonta Smith, who Devonta Smith has been there for all 4 years. And Jalen Waddle is only a junior. So that stuff matters, though. You know, we talk about that age with Dynasty all the time and breakout age. That's a big thing. But Waddle's a smaller, but he's got this build where he's almost like a little thicker, bow-legged, where he's got like shorter legs but a little bit longer torso. Well, Devonta Smith has got this like shorter torso but like longer legs. He's got like limbs all over the place. They're like polar opposite, but they're kind of similar with like slighter builds.
I've heard, is a Tyreek Hill fit from a physical standpoint comp fair for Waddle? Because that sounds very Tyreek-esque. I think he's 5'10", 5'11", 190-ish.
I would say yes, based on the size. But then when you look at the athleticism, he's a freak. His acceleration is freak-like. And his top-end speed, I watched a play where Henry Ruggs went after this defender on a pick six or an interception return last year, and Waddle did too. And I was like, they look about the same speed. And I know everyone's all crazy about Ruggs' speed. So I wonder if Waddle can break 4.3. I have zero doubts that he'll be in the 4.3s because he will.
Can't wait. So what does he do well?
I want to tell you a stat to tell you what he does well. Okay. His athleticism allows him to do lots of things on the field, and he's Alabama's punt returner. He's only done a couple this year, so I'm not going to talk about that stat. But last year, he averaged, his punt return average was 24.4 yards. And I'm not talking like one punt return. I think he had like 24 yards. It's insane. I think it was like, you know, obviously it's on pace for like, you know, college record, whatever. Because he's that dynamic in the open field. He just understands how he can use his speed. No one can, you know, he can hesitate and, you know, pressure cut and get by guys. It's so much fun to see. He's one of those players where he gets the ball in his hands. You're like, okay, what's going to happen now, which you don't see. You see that with Tyreek Hill, as you had talked about, where Tyreek on this last week, he got that handoff, and you're like, he doesn't really have it there. Oh, yep, there he went up the sideline. They can't catch him because he's just a freak. So his athleticism, his burst, and I would say his creativity in open field make him. I will say those are in the special category, and I don't say that very often.
Would you say his size is the biggest thing that's going to hold him back?
Yeah, because he's going to be a slot guy.
How detrimental do you think that's going to be for his dynasty value? Or, I mean, probably not his draft capital, I would guess, but as far as production in the NFL, if you had to guess.
Well, I like his route running. Sometimes he can body catch a little bit, and his hands aren't at Devonta Smith's level. With teams, as much as they play 3-4 wide receiver sets, I don't really hold it against them as much. I just want to know he's going to have to be schemed a little bit, I think, to get touches early on, and you want to see how he develops. Is he going to develop into this complete guy, or is he just going to be like a Percy Harvin type? You know what I mean? I think he has more of a skill set, but that's going to be the biggest thing. Is like, okay, could he develop into that Antonio Brown, which I talked about, and that's so hard to say, because I remember Tyreek Hill when he was a running back at Oklahoma State, and then all of a sudden now he's this receiver that can do everything. There's so many things there, but you want to think of the tools that they have in their toolbox, and he has elite open field ability and his athleticism, and those are things that you want to chase, and you hope that the other tools come along.
I absolutely love a wide receiver with a punt returner's background, because they're used to trying to break multiple tackles and not get smashed while doing it. And when they can get even the best of corners or safeties in the open field, it's not impossible to make a miss. And then when you're talking about elite speed and burst, like it sounds like he has, man, that's a deadly combination. So you put him with a good, accurate passer. So where's going to be a good NFL fit for him? And who does he put at risk of getting bumped on down the line?
I don't know if this is a great fit, but I was just thinking of where his skill set is badly needed. And I'm going to say the New York Giants. They badly need a weapon. Anybody.
I love that call.
Somebody with
I love that. Because they do. If you watch the New York Giants, and I'm not taking up for Daniel Jones because I am somewhat of a Daniel Jones fan, but Jerry, he's been operating with crumb bums and shoe clerks. Nothing against Darius Slayton. He's a 5th-round pick out of Auburn, so he's maximized his talent window. Evan Ingram drops everything and has not lived up to his potential. Golden Tate at one time was an absolute dog. And he still plays very tough for a man of his age, but they need juice. They need something. And I think that would be the perfect combination to me in my mind as I'm playing amateur NFL GM. And we all make fun of Dave Gettleman, but he won that Odell Beckham trade, by the way. But as I sit here and I think, I'm like, man, you draft this Waddle kid, and then maybe you sign like a Juju Smith-Schuster in free agency, and then you're already bringing Ingram back on the 5th-year deal. And you still got Slayton to kind of be that complimentary 3-4 target a game guy. You get Barkley back. The offensive line's gotten better. And then now you're cooking with gas. But it sounds like if that were to happen, even without bringing in a Juju, it sounds like he would put a guy like Sterling Shepard, a guy who's never truly lived up to his potential that we thought coming out. It sounds like we would put someone like him in jeopardy of losing his job.
Correct. Yeah, I'm with you. And part of what you need to do if you're this amateur NFL GM, you have to surround your young quarterback with options, or else he's going to Sam Darnold his way to what's going to happen.
You bring up I didn't mean to cut you off, but you bring up a great example. You look at Sam Darnold, who had a lot of potential and talent, and even Baker to a degree. It's gotten better. But then look at the path of Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. You get head coaches and GMs and offensive coordinators that you put around these guys that, they know what their limitations are, and they give them every tool in the toolbox to make them successful, versus a guy like Sam Darnold or Josh Rosen are like, figure it out, kid. Welcome to the NFL. And that's what I want to see for for like a Daniel. That's a great pick. They're going to be picking somewhat high in the draft. Depends on if they win the NFC East or not. But I love that one. Let's go to a guy who lives not too far from me, at least currently. Although I have been reading some mock drafts. They have him mock drafted to the Colts, which does not make a lot of sense. But this man's name is Rondale Moore. Who is he, Nick Whalen?
Oh man, this is near and dear to my heart. I got a personal story about Rondale Moore. Whew, you got me juiced up. Okay. Rondale Moore is 5'9", 180, 185-ish. I don't know if I believe that. I mean, he's thick, lower body. I mean, there's a video of him at Purdue his freshman year doing Memphis's favorite exercise, which is squatting. He squatted 600 pounds as a freshman. And this kid is dedicated. I'll start with the story, okay? And we won't even build this into his positives, okay? I'm a coach, okay? You had Randy, you talked about that initially. I coached in college, and then I coach in high school now. And I go to coaching clinics because the sickness is in me. Okay. I love this sport. I love coaching. I love thinking about it. I always think about new plays, even though I'm not a coordinator right now. Like, it's just in you. And I go to this clinic. It's in Chicago, and Purdue's co-offensive coordinator, wide receivers coach, Jamarcus Shepard, is there. And I was like, okay, cool. Purdue's wide receiver coach. So I want to go to this session, another session. I'm like, I'll go to one of those. And then I look at his resume, and he was at Western Kentucky. Where do I have experience? Western Kentucky. He was actually there about 2 years after I was there. I was like, oh, cool. Here's my in. I can talk with him. And then I want to know about Rondale Moore, because this is after his freshman year, And so I go up to him and I just introduce myself, and we, have our Western Kentucky kind of, coming together. And I asked him about a couple plays, and I said, hey, so how good is Rondale Moore? And he's just like, he like loses it, because we're cool. Then he's like, it was tough because he was the best guy that came on campus. And that's tough when you have all these veterans there. But he told me after the Ohio State game. So if you watched the Ohio State game his freshman year, special just jumped off the page. He was the best player on the field. He won the game. I mean, you're Purdue and you beat Ohio State and you're a freshman and you're running over people. Yeah. Not even a question. Like, insane how good he did. But here's the best part of the story. After that game, when you're a freshman, you're 18, 19, and you just beat Ohio State, it's party time, right? Like, you're like celebrating, you know what I mean? Like, you're having a ball. He texted him at, 11, 12 at night. And he's like, hey, coach, in the third quarter, I missed that block, but I know if I did this different technique, I would get it.
Just sign me up. If you're in a draft with me, you will be fighting me for Rondale Moore. I love guys like this. I absolutely love talented guys that's why I love Terry McLaren. Nick introduced me to the name, started doing my own research, and the more that this is a job, and you can have all the talent in the world, but what's the saying? Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. You take an extremely talented guy and you let him work hard, or he wants to naturally work hard. The sky is the limit. So you're already in love with him. What does he do well? What traits is he bringing to the NFL?
Right.
It's going to be good for us in Dynasty.
Well, I'll add in one more small part to that. He just said that he doesn't allow any of those distractions in. So he's even more dedicated than you would think to football, which makes me excited. What does he do well? He is he's a mix of, oh boy, Percy Harvin and Tavon Austin. Like, he's strong and great after the catch. Jalen Waddle's great after the catch because he's super quick. Rondale Moore is strong and agile and fast. I mean, Rondale Moore is going to be probably like a 4.38 type of a guy. Jalen Waddle could be a 4.3 flat type of a guy. But Rondale Moore is strong, like breaks tackles. Like, it's insane. He's kind of like in college, Cordell Patterson could break tackles in like 85 different ways. That's what Rondale Moore can do. So he understands angles. He's just phenomenal after the catch. And then I would say he's also, I would say just strong. I mean, when he plays, he can break through, like, when they're trying to get rerouted, he can get back into his stem. He can have strong hands. I mean, he just, when you look at him, you're like, okay, well, this guy could get pushed around, but he plays bigger than his size, which is really important, I think. Well, you're gonna ask me about the negatives. I'll let you guys ask.
I am. No, go ahead. Is it the injuries? Is that one of the big things?
That would be one. Yeah, he had a bad hamstring injury that knocked him out last year. He had a finger injury actually this last spring as well. That kind of knocked him out. And then also it's, what's he going to become? Because what they've really limited him to a lot of manufactured touches at Purdue. Handoffs, screens, just hitches, option routes, a lot of slot stuff.
Which is easy for them to do at Purdue because they don't have the horses like everybody else.
Yep, exactly. I mean, they feed him. I mean, he had 114 receptions as a freshman. 114 as a freshman. I mean, you think about like not being in the shape to handle that. I mean, that shows you the shape he's in. I just don't know what he's going to be. Kind of like Waddle, where are they just going to be the slot guy, or are they going to evolve into this other thing? Is it going to be manufactured touches? That's kind of the biggest question mark. I think Moore has I've seen more to his game, but I think Waddle's done more down the field because he's had some quarterbacks and he's been in a better system that way. Moore, he's just limited. It's like, I don't know, can he do it? Can he not do it? It's like Melvin Gordon at Wisconsin. Like, can he catch the ball? Can he not? And then you see him catch the ball later on. So that's kind of the biggest thing holding him back. He can take too much time on his releases at times. He can try and do too much with stemming with defensive backs, but he still knows what to do, which is good. He just needs to clean it up a little bit as well.
Well, before I ask you where would be a good fit for him, the first thing when you were talking about, hitches, bubble screens and everything, I really thought New England Patriots, because and I don't mean to make fun, I've got a reputation for busting Cam Newton's chops, but you're going to have a limited quarterback in New England, and they have he's not taking anyone's job because there's no one's job worth saving in New England. Jerry, that's the epitome of crumb bums and shoe clerks. Ham and eggers, if you will. And, for a quarterback that's got, limitations, whether it's Stidham or Cam or maybe a rookie, because I've seen some rookies mocked to the New England Patriots, that feels like a good fit because limited quarterbacks tend to do better with wide receivers that do well around the line of scrimmage. So that's mine. I'm just throwing that out there based on your description. But where do you think he would best fit on an NFL roster?
Well, I mean, I would say N'Keal Harry is that guy because that's kind of what he does, but I'm not a fan of him. I never have been. My scheme fit for him would be Detroit. Detroit needs another playmaker. Galladay's been banged up. Is Marvin Jones going to still be there? You got Hawkinson, who took a step. I'm really proud of his route running I've been seeing recently. I like Swift, but give them another guy. I mean, I think Stafford gets such a bad rap. That guy he's good. He's good with what he's dealing with. I think he's good. Is he perfect? No. Not everyone can be Aaron Rodgers and Mahomes, but he's good. And give him a weapon. We talked about surrounding your guys with weapons. Give him a weapon. I mean, Kenny Golladay was a third round pick. I mean, give him Rondale Moore. I would say late first, they would trade up to get him, or early second. Get him more and then see what Stafford can do.
Well, that would make Jerry happy, but unfortunately, it's the law in the state of Michigan that they have to draft a tight end with that first overall pick. So they'll probably wind up with Kyle Pitts, who we're going to talk about on a future episode. I just love giving Jerry all the grief in the world. All right, we went back-to-back Alabama guys earlier. Let's stick with another Big Ten guy, a guy out of Minnesota. Shout out to our boy Kane Fassell, row the damn boat. We're going to talk about Rashad Bateman. Who is Rashad Bateman?
Man, I'll just say this. I'm proud of Rashad Bateman. I mean, he's a 4-star guy, but he was a low 4-star guy. These other guys are all pretty high. Well, not true. Rondale Moore was low, by the way. I didn't even say that. I probably should check that. I mean, Bateman here is like 59th, 61st. If you look at Rivals and 24/7 with where he was expected to be. 6'2", 210. He's kind of ideal. And before we kind of start into a lot of this other stuff, my comp for him is Michael Thomas. So if you think of Michael Thomas, his game type, that's what I see with Bateman.
He's good at football. Michael Thomas. Jerry, got your pen handy? Michael Thomas, good at football. Write that down.
Let me write it.
Yep. But interesting for Bateman. So Bateman started, 2018, and he had to play alongside Tyler Johnson, who's, he did it up there. But then 2019, he kind of took over as the man. I mean, down the field, he averaged 20.3 yards per reception, where Johnson was a lot of the smaller ones. And then he opted out this year. And then the Big Ten said, hey, we'll play football. So then he's like, just kidding, I'll play. And then he just shut it down November 25th. So we didn't see as much. People are going to be like, well, I was disappointed this year. You only averaged 13.1 yards per reception. What is this year as a season? And when it's the Big Ten and you're in, you're out, I don't know how much I'm going to put my eggs in that basket.
Yeah, we joked on our mock draft Monday night when his name come up that he had been playing the COVID hokey pokey. 1 minute you're in, 1 minute you're out, kind of, sort of. So what does he do well? What appears on the film, and what traits does he possess that make you excited for him as an NFL receiver?
He's a guy that I'll be honest, our bias plays a big role in all this. He was a guy that was like, I didn't really like him that much. And then the more tape that I watched, this is why I love watching film. The more tape I watched, the more I liked him. Then I watched another game, like, oh man. Another game, like, he was my number one wide receiver in my Devery report in this class. I couldn't watch film and watch his purposeful movements with his feet, with his hands, and his route running and not have him there. He is so efficient. Him and Devontae Freeman are top two guys in route running for me. Now, Devontae Freeman looks better because he's more athletic. Bateman's just not as athletic, but it's purposeful. Like Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas isn't a great athlete. He's good. He's not great, but he just does everything great. Like all his movements, he makes everyone move how they want to, and he just sets up defensive backs so well. So footwork, route running, and body control. All of those are really good with Bateman.
What was it that you saw that made you not love him at first? Because I feel like if there's anyone in this class that everybody was really high on for a little bit and then it slipped, and 2020 is probably a product of that, even though he really didn't struggle this year. And Minnesota was a dumpster fire, and he still showed out for them. What was it that initially made you not love him, and sort of, if there is a flaw in his game, what do you think is the most that stands out?
From a film perspective, I'll say stiff hips. He's got some stiff hips to him where his flexibility isn't there. It hurts him a little bit in terms of after the reception. It hurts him a little bit with route running, but he's worked around that, which I love. I love when you're like, hey, this is my flaw, but I know I can get around it by doing these movements in my game versus me trying to do something else. Like, he doesn't try to be somebody that he's not. If Derrick Henry was behind the line and danced and moved his feet a bunch, you're like, what are you doing? Like, you're not going to be you. He like gets downhill and uses his speed and his power, So that's what Bateman does. Like, he just doesn't dance. He just does what he's supposed to do. The other thing that hinders him is he's not a great athlete. I think so many times when we look at these players, we look at highlights, we're like, who's the biggest and fastest? I mean, right now it's like, who's the next DK Metcalf? Because that's all that matters. Who's the next Chase Claypool? It's all that matters. Like, football matters too. I remember Stephen Hill. Stephen Hill was super athletic too. He didn't do anything, So we need to see the game, and Bateman has the game, and he showed it game after game for me, that I was like, I have to keep moving him up, and I move him over Jamar Chase, which I know people are like, that's a sin,
One of the things that I'm really enjoying doing this is listening to you evaluate, and we did this last week with Ray as well, and then I start thinking through where would be a good fit for him before I ask you. The first team that come to mind didn't fit, but the one that I ultimately thought of was Houston. Because you've got the really speedy guy. Look at this.
That's what I had.
I did this with Ray last week several times too. I was able to get, because it feels like they'll bring Will Fuller back, because when the quarterback wants him to be brought back and the quarterback's going to be consulted when they go to get the new head coach, obviously they're going to consult him in bringing Will Fuller back. So Will Fuller feels like he would play a different game than Bateman, and that they would be a nice 1-2 punch. So obviously you thought the same thing.
Yeah, now here's the problem. So in my head, I was just like, I just feel bad for Deshaun Watson. Like, he deserves, Rashad Bateman, he deserves like a Michael Thomas-like guy on his team. But then you're like, well, they don't have a first or second round pick. Like, he's going to have to like fall like mid-second. They're going to have to trade up. Like, how's it going to happen? I don't know. But like, to me, that just he deserves that. And then who's it going to hurt? Maybe we're just going to say R.I.P. Brandon Cooks in his head. I mean, I feel bad for him.
He's had more, like, I don't say soft tissue injuries this year, but Brandon Cooks has been okay.
Yeah.
I feel like, man, Deshaun Watson, he's been great. And a guy that I listen to for some of our gambling stuff, and he runs a website called pregame.com. His name's RJ Bell. And he was putting out some stats. If you go to @RJ in Vegas, that the stats basically say that over the last 15 games that Deshaun Watson's been a better quarterback than Patrick Mahomes. And it's not particularly close with the way that – so if you want to check those out, I've retweeted some of them. But I just imagine what Deshaun Watson could do once he gets a permanent head coach and some weapons and an offensive coordinator. Just an amazing talent. So I like that one. But we saved the best for last. At least my favorite, the guy that I've heard called the best wide receiver prospect since Julio Jones, which is a very bold statement. I see your face, but his name is Jamar Chase, wide receiver, Louisiana State. Now, you did not see him this year as he opted out. But Nick, who is Jamar Chase for those that forgot?
Yeah, Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase was a solid prospect coming out. 4-star guy. He was 12th and 15th from Rivals in 24/7 Sports. 6 foot 200. He's got that solid size. If I had to, my comps for him are hilarious. By the way, I have comps for all these guys. If you wanted to hear them, I could tell you. I put a lot of time into comps, and I have to put this asterisk out there. My comps are not their career arc. It's who their game reminds me of. Like, I'll say that and you'd be like, okay, that's kind of who they are, So his comps for me, the overall one would be like a DJ Moore type. That's kind of who he reminds me of the most. But then if I always take like a minus this or a plus this, like if you were to take away some of Odell Beckham Jr.'s athleticism, that's who he could be. And if you want to take some of the size and strength away, and like smaller, he's like a Dwayne Bowe. Now people would hear that and they're like, ew, Dwayne Bowe. Do you remember Dwayne Bowe coming out of LSU, everybody? Early in his career? Yeah. He was a beast.
He had like a 14 touchdown season or a 12 touchdown season.
He was good. So that's kind of who he reminds me of. He's I guess in the good realm, because we're going to start there. I mean, he was the Blitnikoff winner. 20 touchdowns, 21.2 yards per reception, like absolutely crushed it. Now, here's what scares me. And I put this tweet out actually recently. People didn't like this, whatever. LSU 2019 was unbelievable, like record setting, like they're like the best thing ever. I mean, set every record. Not everybody can be amazing, but we did that. Like Joe Brady's like the hottest coaching prospect. He might be a head coach after this year, 1 year with the Panthers, as a OC. Joe Burrow, first pick. Jamar Chase, best receiver, you said, since Julio Jones. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, first round pick, jumped everybody. He's going to light the world on fire fantasy-wise.
Justin Jefferson,
which Jefferson did it, so I'll give him that.
Yeah, I missed the Jefferson bus, by the way. I was a little speculative, but yes.
Mm-hmm.
So what does he do well outside of score a lot of touchdowns? What do you think is gonna translate to the NFL for some success?
Strength. He's a strong player for his size. I mean, that's why I put in there like that Bow. And Odell is strong for his size. DJ Moore strong for his size. He's just strong, like strong at the catch point, strong after the reception, can break tackles. Now I have a negative with that I'll talk about later. So strong. His tracking ability and jump ball skills are good. And what combines those and makes them even better is he's on balance a lot. He runs his routes. He's always on balance, which that's important. That's a huge part of football. Like you can't be running out of control. Like there's a timing to all of this, and he puts all those together and it helps him on the outside a lot, but helps him when he comes over the middle, doing dig routes and things like that too. And then after the reception as well.
Listen, you have been waiting and I will not delay it anymore. Tell me what has you trepidatious about Mr. Jamar Chase, because it's something. And if everybody's buying the hype and you're not, I want to know why, because I got my pen.
Yeah. He struggles off the line of scrimmage. I see too many defenders get their hands into his chest and get him off of his routes. When you're running a route, okay, and the defender, normally the corners, they're always taking away your inside. They want to prevent a slant. And you watch Devonta Adams, right? He'll fake inside and then come outside and then fake inside again. I mean, they do crazy things to make corners look bad. Keenan Allen, Terry McLaurin, all these guys. I see so many times Jamar Chase just, I'll just go outside. He just relies on his strength and athletic ability instead of the technique parts, being a technician. And that scares me. Now, that's not all the time, but I don't see the crispness of his routes like I want to see from a Julio Jones type number one prospect. I just don't see the crispness there. And then also, if you're a big physical guy, I don't want to see corners getting their hands in your chest. Now, I saw that with Trayvon Diggs doing that to him. And eventually later he would throw Trayvon Diggs or get some separation, later on. But man, like if you're going to be great in all of your aspects. You know what I mean? I just see some faltering there. And I hope it's not laziness. I hope it's not, I'm just good enough. I can get by with this. Cause I saw that with N'Keal Harry. N'Keal Harry did a lot of these same things. I'm good enough. I can just jump all people. And you need all of the parts to be that at the NFL level. It's hard. Now, he's still my third ranked wide receiver, or he was prior to the season. I haven't re-ranked him now, but he's good. I'm not saying he's bad, but I just don't see those things there. And those are like fundamental things for me. Like if the corner can have their hands on you all the time and you don't get off the line clean, you're not going to get targets.
No, that's the thing is when we talk about flaws in people, listen, you tweeted this today that we need to stop living in this black and white world where everything is either right or wrong or hate or love. You've been getting a lot of flack on the Cam Akers. I feel you. I understand it. This is one of those situations. We don't hate these guys. You have to address all things in every single situation to make the best decision for our future and for our dynasty team. So that's what we mean when I'm coming in and asking him about the flaws of them because I don't know them and I want to know them, and that's why I've got 2 pages of notes sitting right here because Nick's my man.
I think too often it is that we don't get any latitude to change our opinion, and just because you don't love somebody that doesn't mean that you hate them. It's not always that black and white. There's a rankings process for a reason. And that doesn't mean that we're always going to get it right. I think our batting average and track record speak for themselves. But more often than not, we're going to get it right. But sometimes you're going to do it. And very rarely will you hear anyone just come right out and say, hey, this person is a bad football player. It doesn't work that way. It all comes down to situation and how things work out. Now, I have seen him mock to the Philadelphia Eagles a lot. I don't know what their quarterback situation is going to look like in about 4 months. The word on the street is that they're going to Osweiler Wentz out of Philadelphia to my Colts. Hey, if they want to send Wentz and his bloated contract and a couple of picks for us to take him, hey, I'm game. The Colts have got the cap room. And I would love to see that reunion. Nothing against Uncle Phil. He's got us at 9-4. But what is the ideal spot? So if you're Jamar Chase's agent, where do you want to see him land to maximize that value?
I don't think he's going to last, but I would love to see him take Corey Davis's spot in Tennessee. Have him be this play action guy where he can just use his strength to block, which I think he needs to improve on a little bit, but do dig routes, crossing routes, and that would help with the separation because there's going to be less linebackers because they're going to be worried about the run. I think that him teaming up with A.J. Brown would just be awesome in Tennessee.
Well, as a Colts fan, I'm using my line item veto power to veto Jamar Chase winding up in the AFC South. I say nay. And before we wrap this up and thank Nick for coming on, I am going to talk Corey Davis for just a hot second. He is not a rookie, but he is one that if you go back, I don't know, maybe a year or two ago, Nick and I had the great Corey Davis debate. Here's what I'm going to say. I was wrong about the talent that is Corey Davis. I've seen flashes of it. Jerry will tell you I've advocated for our patrons and our patron group to buy Corey Davis going back to the preseason. I am excited for him to be given the opportunity to show what his talent can truly do. I don't think he has an alpha personality, even if he has an alpha game. And I think he's going to do real well where he winds up in a situation to where his work can just speak for itself and he doesn't have to butt his way to the front of the line. This will probably blow some people away as my love for Baker Mayfield, while growing, is not all the way. I would love to see him be the number 2 in Cleveland with Jarvis Landry. I don't think Odell Beckham fits there. And for those that want to disagree, I'll just have you check the scoreboard real quick in Baker's stats since Odell's been gone and before Odell got there. There's something that gets in Baker's head, and I would love to see Corey Davis wind up in a spot like that because I was wrong. He's more talented than I gave him credit for. We've seen flashes, but and nothing against Ryan Tannehill. He's like the QB7 on the season at the quarterback position. But I would love for him to wind up, I think him and Tua would have a good personality. Working well together. I think he would do well with Daniel Jones. I think he would do well with Russell Wilson. I just think that there are so many places, and I think the one that just popped into my head, San Francisco. I know they've tried the Debo thing, and Ayuka's looked like a star, but I would love to see someone with Corey Davis's tools in his tool belt have the advantage of playing with someone like Kyle Shanahan. So there you go, Nick. I've admitted my wrongs.
He conceded a little.
A little.
He still said he wasn't a guy, though.
No. I mean, here's the thing. No. I'm just being honest. It's personality traits. Some guys are alphas. Some guys are pound their chest and me, demand the ball. Some guys can be just as talented without always having to be the center of attention. He's not the diva wide receiver that so many are. And if he demanded those. Yes. And he needs to find his Matt Ryan. He needs to find the guy who can unlock his full potential and give us everything. Like I said, I've been buying a lot of Corey Davis. I've been advocating for Corey Davis. Please don't tell Izzy. Izzy and I made a trade in the Ultimate Dynasty Podcasters League where we did some trading, and neither one of us really won the deal, but he always likes to rib me every time Corey Davis has a good game, and I'll send it back when T.Y. Hilton has a good game. That's just the nature of the beast. But, Nick, thank you so much for coming on, talking these rookies. What's going on with you, man? You got the life coach thing going on. You've got the Dynasty Nerds thing going on, the graduates. I mean, just tell us what's up.
Yeah, so just working on that stuff, and then I dabbled, and it takes a lot of time. But I started my own YouTube channel, so I did. I was maybe the first person talking about the flaws of Jonathan Taylor and how he needs to improve them, and that was kind of fun. I did one on Kenyon Drake, and I had Matt Wallman, or he had me on as a guest. I put that out there, so that's kind of fun, just me breaking down film and doing that. But yeah, dude, I love life coaching. I'm trying to get my foot back, so for working out, I'm doing that a bunch. Being a counselor and just trying to get through COVID, man.
Yeah, I want to make sure
the foot has been a hassle in and of its own, man. But bless your heart for everything you have had to deal with that. I know all that racing and everything means so much to you, and it's just been a pain in the ass, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah.
And you still fighting, staying positive. Mm-hmm. One of the good dudes, man. That's why I like talking to you too.
I'm not counting my man out. I'm not counting Nick Whalen out. He's tougher than a $2 steak. No. He'll be back out there running before you know it. He is one of the genuinely good people. And when you hear life coach, guys, everybody needs someone to talk to sometimes. This COVID year's been really, really weird, and I know we're getting vaccines, and I'm not going down a weird road, but I think the mental health capacity and the issues that can come along behind that could do a lot more harm than the actual virus itself. So if you ever felt like you need somebody, dude, reach out to Nick. He's an amazing friend. He's an amazing guy. Very well spoken. He's a counselor by trade, so I cannot recommend this guy enough if you're looking to straighten some things out in your life.
Yeah, I appreciate that, guys. That means a lot. I mean, to me, this, this football passion that we have, it's just a platform. Like I would rather help people in their lives. That's why we talked about the fitness thing, Randy. That's why I decided to try this life coaching thing. So I'm like, I already do counseling. I'm like, if I can help out, and I want to focus on guys. I don't want to have, no offense, females, but like, yeah, I'd rather focus on guys because we're always talking with guys, but also there's this stigma of counseling with guys. I mean, I'm a guy's guy. Okay. Like, I do the crazy racing thing. I'm all into sports. I do stuff with my cars. I hunt. Like, I'm a guy's guy, but like, we got stuff we have to work through, whether it's relationships or work or, stuff that we got, there's addictions, there's so many things, but like, I would rather help someone's life in that way than, hey, Corey Davis, and we hit on that one or whatever. Like, that's fun, but like, meaningful stuff. And that's towards my Christian background and a lot of that stuff too. So.
Hey, man, I'm with you. I love helping people with their dynasty. If you listen to the opening rant of this podcast, I'm very passionate about that. But I would give up helping 1,000 people with their dynasty rosters if it just meant I helped one person with their health, with their fitness, and gave them a better life so that they could have a little bit more. But Nick, man, thank you so much for coming on, guys. Check him out at _Nick Whalen on Twitter. We're gonna work this Jerry's fitness life into a YouTube series that's gonna break the internet. We're gonna give him. Nick and I are gonna give you workouts. We're gonna have you film them. We're gonna have your lovely wife film them, and then we're gonna post them on the YouTube channel while Nick and I narrate. I smell money. As Jerry's bleeding, I'm gonna remind him that blood red turns dollar green. So.
Listen. Luckily, my insurance is okay, so I should be able to survive it. But before we get out of here, I'm not going to let Nick leave this studio, whatever you want to call it, until he calls his shot on a small school guy. You hit us with Terry McLaren last year. Bro, give me something to write down. Give me one of these guys. It doesn't necessarily have to be a small school guy, someone that not a ton of people are talking about right now that's just that little Nick Whalen gem that I can just steal from everybody else.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That was fun. McLaurin, that was a fun one. I'm gonna give you not one. I'm gonna give you three. Now, they're all in the same category, and they might not all be draft eligible. They might not all declare, but they're all transfers. So, and I don't want to tell a little story about why I picked these guys first. You talked about Baker Mayfield, Randy. He just kind of found this new receiver that's just kind of worked for him. That late round pick, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Like, who's this guy? Donovan Peoples-Jones was the top receiver for most people. He was my wide receiver, I think, 2 when he came out. Super athletic. It just didn't develop for him at Michigan. I'm a Harbaugh guy. I know you're not, Jerry. We won't go there. But Shea Patterson is not a good quarterback. He had the best receiving core
in college
ever.
History.
I mean, Ole Miss and Michigan, because he had Donovan Peoples-Jones, Tariq Black, and Nico Collins, who, by the way, I was told I have to mention Nico Collins on this. I saw the tweet, so he's a good receiver too. But he wasted these talents, and Donovan Peoples-Jones flashed, right? Big, athletic, had the pedigree, flashed some, didn't fully develop. I got 3 guys for you that are in that category. Okay. The first one, the main one, is Trayvon Grimes, wide receiver, used to be at Ohio State, transferred to Florida. He's flashed. He's big, 6'4", athletic, hasn't put it all together. I want to see him have stronger hands, a little bit better route running, but man, he's a guy to think. I mean, we're not talking about small chance guys you can get from your 4th round of your rookie draft. This is kind of one of those guys. And then these other 2 would be dependent kind of what happens. I think Tariq Black doesn't have any more eligibility left, but he went from Michigan to Texas. He was my number 1 guy. Oh, I loved how he moved. If you guys remember how Stevie Johnson had this body type where he could go laterally despite being a big guy, it was just weird. And that's how Tariq Black's body in athleticism is. He has a lateral ability to him that big guys shouldn't have. And he has a good game to him too, good ball skills, etc. And then the other one, former top 5-star wide receiver, didn't work out. Justin Shorter went to Penn State, thought he's going to be the guy, put on a bunch of weight, didn't happen for him, transferred to Florida. Sounds like he's a little bit more motivated. Hasn't really happened. I'm not sure if he's going to come out this year, might be next year, but he's a guy that just don't forget about the overall pedigree and talent that could be there. And I'm always, and these three guys, I'm also really big on giving people second chances. I always want to see one of those stories. So those would be the three that I would look for. Main one would be Grimes. Black would just really make me happy because these guys I've always been high on, and Shorter we'll just see. So,
Nick, you are a gem, and you shouldn't be a hidden gem because everybody should be following you at _Nick Whalen on Instagram. He is a good Instagram follow. And but I look forward to get you getting healthy, you getting back down here, we getting past this COVID, we get some people vaccinated so we can get back out in the mud and do some obstacle course racing. You got to get that foot healed up. But I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Just another great guest in Nick. And we'll get back here next week. We're going to do a little bit of a shorter show. I don't know that we can scrape up 5 tight ends. I don't know that there's 5 good tight ends in all of Dynasty fantasy football right now. But there may be some reinforcements on the way. But until next week, on behalf of these two guys, his name is Jerry Sinclair. You can follow him at Jerry Sin DWZ. You can follow Nick at Nick at _ Nick Whalen, and I'm at DWZ Memphis. And until next time, on behalf of these guys, we're just here to make the world a better place for fantasy football. Talk to you soon. Thanks, everybody.